So I needed some questions that I could program into Zoe so that she could come up with the answers. And so I was going to use YouTube questions, but nobody ever asked me any questions on YouTube because I explain things so well. Anyway, I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of 30 questions that a human might ask a robot when meeting for the first time. And ChatGPT gave me all of these questions, and I reformatted them a little bit. If you notice, each line of text is going to be one entry in the database. You'll notice the first part is in, the first one, for example, says, "What is your designation?" And I wrapped those in square brackets, and then I provided an answer after the square brackets. Now, the way the chat engine works is it will use all of those words, except for the ones that are marked to ignore, but it'll use all those words in the search to find the answer. However, when it finds a good potential reply and a good reply that it wants to respond to, it will only say the text outside of the square brackets. And the reason for that is I don't need the question to be spoken. I only need the answer to be spoken. Now, this is one way I can put data into the database. I don't have to include a question in a square bracket, but I can if I want to. And this is going to work fairly well. However, every time that question, "What is your designation?" is asked, she'll most likely give that answer, "My full name is Zoe the Robot," but not necessarily. So something you might notice about this data is where there are square brackets, there's a space before the sentence starts. And that square bracket has a space before it and after it. And on some of these words where there are commas and there's a period there also, there's a space before it and after it. Now, the reason I do that is because the search routine treats each word as a separate item because it is surrounded by spaces. So if that were not the case, the program would think, like right there, the word "no" has a period after it. The software would think the word "no" period is a word, and that would not work properly. So I need to go in and edit this file a little bit more. Now, if you've seen the videos that show off the user interface and show you how it works, there's something a little bit different. This row of buttons across the top has a new button called Bulk Data Menu. And what that is because I was running out of room here, there was an old button called Add Engrams, and that was allowing me to insert a bunch of engrams into the engram table, which is like a dictionary. So it was words. That allowed me to enter those all at once by basically providing a list of text. And since I ran out of room, or since I'm running out of room, what I did was I created a form called the Bulk Data Menu. And that has buttons on it that allows me to select these add data to the database in bulk options. So I will click on that. And this form here opens up. And I know it's only 2 buttons and it's got a lot of text on it, but it basically lets me add bulk data to the facts table or add bulk data to the n-grams table. And remember, the facts table is like an encyclopedia. That's where you put the stuff that you want the robot to read out or to say. And the n-grams table is like a dictionary. It says it right there, dictionary. And that is for words, individual words. And so if I click add bulk data to the n-grams table, I get this form, and that lets me paste in a list of n-grams there and to set various properties of all the words in the list. And then when I click go, it inserts those words into the n-grams table. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are going to try add bulk data to the facts table. Now, I've never had this before. This is brand new. So I added that menu form, and now I added this form. Now, this has a text box that is a lot wider than it is long, because that's the way text is usually shown. This writes the data into the facts table, and I can take all those questions that I had in that text file and just paste them right in here and press go, and all of that text data will go into the facts table when I get this code for this form completed. So I built this little application for inserting bulk facts, which is basically the sentences that I want Zoe to say. I called it add list of facts. I always like to put a little text at the top of the form with a description or instructions. And I usually make that text blue, but that's of course not mandatory. And over here, this was an accident. I accidentally called this or colored this violet, and I thought, that looks okay, so I just left it. Okay, so the way this works is there is a big text box right there, and it says paste facts here are clear. So if there was stuff in there already and I wanted it to go away, I could click clear, but otherwise I would just paste the facts in there. Then, let's see, the next section down, there's different ways for cleaning the data, if it's normal text or if it's from Wikipedia. Because I've already got my data and I know what it is, I didn't write any code for that yet. So in the database, there are only 4 columns that we need to write, and that's the fact, the taught by, which is my name, the input date, which is in date serial form, which I'm storing it as a giant integer in the format year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, and source, which is where the data came from. Now I have hard-coded the taught by and the source for now because I'm still testing this. So this is what gets inserted in the database in the facts table. And there's the input date format, year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds. And I know I could put a regular date in there, but I can read this just as well. And it does sort the dates perfectly fine like that. Okay, so when they're hard-coded in there like that, there's a little reminder message. All the rows will receive this date. All the rows will receive this source. Okay, label 15 and label 16 and label 10, I call that sawdust. That's just stuff that's left over after the coding. I need to delete that. Okay. Now this message here says fact will not be inserted when in test mode. And if you look over here by the go button, there's a checkbox that says text mode. And what that does is it does not insert the SQL. It doesn't run the SQL to insert the data when it's in test mode. But what it does do is it generates the SQL and it writes it up in this description box. And I know it's not real logical, but if you write it up there, you can look at it before you execute it and make sure everything looks right. So after I put data in there, I would click go. And if I wanted it to go in the database, I would uncheck the test mode. And then some message will appear here. And then in this bottom text box, if the row already exists in the table, it'll show up in this text box here, and it will also list the row ID. So if I needed to delete it or edit it or whatever, I could go right in the database and find out which one I need to delete. And so when it's all done, it'll report rows that it found that were already in the table. Right now it's 0. Rows read will be 0, and rows inserted are 0. That's when it starts. Now, I got these questions from ChatGPT. I showed you these a minute ago. Now, I was doing some testing on this before I started shooting videos. So these 3 rows here that are in with a blue background, those are already in the table. And the reason they're in the table is because the thing worked when I got all the bugs worked out of it. So now I am going to capture all of the 30 questions. And I'm going to copy. And I'm going to go back to my new application, and I am going to paste. And there's all the stuff there. And this little purple box here now says that it detected 28 lines. So I knew there was 30, so I must have missed 2 of them. So have you ever encountered, I guess maybe I missed 1. So let me grab that one. So that little purple checkbox up there at the top has already saved me a little trouble. I'm going to copy that final question. I am going to put it in the text box. Okay, so now it says that it has detected 29 lines of text in that text box. And I am going to go down here to test mode, make sure it's not in test mode. Notice my little message here disappeared, warning you that you were in test mode. It's not in test mode, so it doesn't need the warning. So now, cross your fingers, I am going to press go. And like I said, 3 of the questions I was testing, and they were already in the database. And so it says that there were 3 in the little purple box, and it listed the IDs, the row IDs in the data table in case I need to edit these. I could find them really easily. It also says that rows read were 29. That's the same as what was detected. And it says rows inserted was 26. Now, all of those questions are in my database. However, I still need to run the dream program after inserting the rows. So I am going to do that next. That is a separate program. So I'm going to do that not in this video. Okay, sorry, I was just kidding. This is the Dream program. It's got a run and a stop button on it up in the upper left-hand corner. I always like to start my apps up in the upper left-hand corner and work my way down to the bottom right-hand corner. Anyway, here's my blue text and my little description, program description. It's got, for timing purposes, it's got a start time, a finished time, and an elapsed time. Those are all 0 because the program's currently not running. Tells me that the database connection is open. Tells me the current row ID I am working on. Well, since it's not running, it's 0. Okay, there's the facts table that we have to worry about. And there is the n-grams table that we have to worry about. And this gives you other information like what row is being tested, what rows have been updated, or the number of rows updated, the number of rows that failed during the update, and there's a couple of examples from the fact table. There's something that Hal says, I have detected an anomaly in the AE35 unit. Here's another thing that I think Hal might have said. I am ready for today's lesson. Okay, anyway, here's the n-grams table. Remember, the n-grams table is more like a dictionary. So it's got things like single words or a small phrase in it. Now, what the Dream program does is it sort of organizes the data in the facts table. It assigns the extra words, and there's something on the website about those. Those are extra words that go along with the fact that handles things like synonyms, like the word, if the fact had the word mom in it, then the extra words would have maybe mother and ma and mommy listed in there. And the way it gets that, and the reason this is has references to the facts table and the n-grams table, is if it had a word in the fact that was like mommy, it would look that up in the n-gram table and it would put it in this table. And the reason I'm doing that this way in a separate program called Dream is at night when the robot's asleep and dreaming, I have it look up all those extra words and put them in the table. And that is so that I do not have to look those up at runtime. So if you look at this first line, I have detected an anomaly. An anomaly. What the hell is an anomaly? Well, if you look at the extra words, an anomaly is a fault or a problem. So that is listed in the extra words table. So if I ask a question about, hey Zoe, have you seen an anomaly? It's almost the same as asking the question, hey Zoe, have you seen a fault? Hey Zoe, have you seen a problem? And when the potential replies are scored, those replies will get points for having one of those words in there. So one thing I found is when I run this thing, it runs kind of slow because I'm updating the screen on every line. And so it's scrolling through those facts in the facts table, and it's looking up all the words on that column there under n-gram. those are all the words it looks up, and it gathers those extra words out of the n-gram table. And this, because it's updating the screen, it runs very slow. So what I have found is if I minimize this, it's no longer updating the screen. It'll run much faster. We are now looking at a SQL table. This is the table facts table. These are the inputs I just put in there. If you notice, I say select top 100 from that table, order by ID descending. That means the latest ones inserted will be shown at the top. And you might have noticed in my data, the first part of the facts were surrounded in square brackets. So those are there. So yes, these are the rows I just put in there. Now, what the Dream program did was it inserts the extra words and, very importantly, the fact word count to the rows in the table. And the fact word count is the number of words that were in the fact. So that gets inserted so it doesn't have to calculate it later. All right, everybody, cross your fingers. I have completed the Dream program. I have checked my entries in the database. These are the questions that came from ChatGPT. And if you see right there, can you assist with household chores and maintenance? I'm going to try a little experiment. Hey, Zoe.
Howdy.
Can you assist with maintenance?
Computing. At this time, I have no arms, so no.
You'll notice I left a couple of words out of that question, but I still got an answer that makes sense. So let's rephrase that question just slightly different. Can you assist with household chores?
Let me just mull that over. At this time, I have no arms, so no.
Do you have emotions or feelings?
That's a tough one. In fact, as a robot, I don't have any feelings at all.
What kinds of tasks can you perform?
I can chat and I can roll around.
Okay. So those provided the proper answers, but I'm going to try something. I said the question, what kind of tasks can you perform? I am thinking that, oh, come on, Zoe, I turned the mic off.
A Mars rover is an automated motor vehicle that propels itself across the surface of the planet Mars upon arrival. Rovers have several advantages over stationary landers. They examine more territory, they can be directed to interesting features, they can place themselves in sunny positions to weather winter months, and they can advance the knowledge of how to perform very remote robotic vehicle control.
Okay, I said the word perform, and that might be a big word for a robot. So I'm going to look down here in the list of n-grams. And there's the word. And there's nothing else in the n-gram table for perform. So I am going to double click on perform. That will open up the n-gram edit form. It's preloaded with the word perform. It's got an ID of 5 nines, and that's a secret code that means, hey, this is going to be a new entry. I think it means that anyway. It should. And what I'm going to do, instead of the word perform, I'm going to just assign it a synonym. Do. And I'm going to ask Zoe, what kind of tasks can you perform?
Checking my database.
I'm going to try this again. Wish me luck. What kind of tasks can you do?
Let me think about that. I can chat and I can roll around.
Because I added the synonym of perform as do, that same input found the same output. Now, one of the scores, this top row on here, what kind of tasks can you perform? If you look over here in the P7 column and the P7A column, that got a negative 30 points in the P7A column. And the P7 column is because that response was recently spoken, and the code is designed to not repeat stuff if it was recently spoken. It took 30 points off of that response, but it still got 100 points. So that was the one that was spoken. And if I change, let's see, it got a 5 and a 1 and a 1 and a 6 in the P3 column. If I change the format of that grid from points to words, it changes the grid. It actually shows other columns, and it's showing the extra words, and that was the matching n-gram. What kind of tasks can you? And it's not showing the extra word do like it should. So there's some troubleshooting I'll have to do. But basically, it did come up with the right output, so we'll see what happens. Well, surprise, I had to run the dream program again. And so then I asked Zoe again, what kind of tasks can you do? And remember, the original question had the word perform. Now in the n-gram processor screen, the word do in its definition has the word perform in the synonym column. And now the reply down in the potential replies screen, what kind of tasks can you perform? It matched what kind of tasks can. See you next time.